Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
It's February 2022, and this time of year, for about the last 6 weeks, I have got untold patients, probably well over half, that are like, my lips are dry. And at this time of year, we are running out of vitamin D that we stored in the summer months. And so the vitamin D begins to leave, and as vitamin D decreases in our blood, calcium also tends to decrease. I'm amazed, though, when I start taking calcium and do a bit more, along with a little bit of D, not a lot of D, a little bit of D, my lips are immediately soft and they don't peel anymore. It's the craziest thing. And so if you're out there and your lips are peeling and they're dry and you feel like you got to use chapstick all the time, you have an issue with calcium and possibly some D. There are probably other things going on as well, like a liver not performing and not a good source of fats in your diet. So those are things to consider and think about as well. Good fats would be that which is not mainstream, highly processed foods like potato chips and everything that you would buy in a bakery. They're probably going to use corn oil or soy oil. It's not the greatest thing in the world. And if you've been sold on the lie of polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats like you should be doing them, please don't. They're not good for you. But real grass-fed butter is, and doing things like a good fish oil. If you have a fish oil supplement that you take and you open the bottle and it smells fishy, please don't take them. They're oftentimes rancid. At that point, you shouldn't have a whole lot of smell when it comes to fish oil products. You probably might want to keep them refrigerated, would be wise. But ultimately, so if we have good fats in our diet and you're like, hey, my diet's really good, but my lips are still dry, then calcium is probably what you're needing. If you go to a quick blood test like a comprehensive metabolic panel, it'll come out there and tell you things like liver function, your liver enzymes, tell you calcium levels in the blood. Oftentimes for blood values of calcium, it's depending on the lab, it's like 8.5, 8.6 to 10.3, 10.4, 10.5. I've seen it as high as 10.6. A lot of research and literature out there says right around 9.8, 9.99, maybe even a 10.0 might be okay for calcium. I don't know that I totally agree with that. I would say 10.0 is probably borderline blood sugar issues, but if you feel like, wow, I really do a good job of not eating any carbs, I eat good protein, I eat great fats, I eat a lot of vegetables, I feel like my weight is stable, and your blood test comes back and you feel pretty good, you don't get Charlie horses, and you're at a 10.0, I might say that's normal for you, but I'm probably going to look somewhere around a 9.7, 9.8, 9.9 is probably true normal. It's hard to have a well-grown human individual that has a perfect diet and complete mineral balance in their blood and tissues and get enough light and exercise and eat well and low stress to see what their blood looks like to say, hey, this might be possibility of normal. Wouldn't that be nice to know what a real true normal on a blood test is, or a real true optimal? I don't even like the word normal on a blood test because medical doctor said this is normal. Well, their normals aren't normal. Their normals are way off. So for those of you that with that dry lip, the first thing I'm going to say is calcium for sure. And I'm going to use calcium lactate. It's the easiest thing and the quickest thing that works well. And it's not typically a bad source of calcium. It's usually the calcium carbonates that are really bad that are everywhere. Calcium citrates are okay, but that's a bone food, not a blood food, or calcium lactate that comes from beets is a blood food. I particularly, as you've heard on other podcasts, talk about raw milk. I do like raw milk. I think it's an okay source of calcium. In fact, I think it's a fabulous source of calcium. All the store-bought milk, don't even bother. You might as well not even buy it, in my opinion. It's really not a great thing for the human body because it's destroyed and dead, but go listen to my milk podcast, and I think it'll explain why. And so if you're going to do something like milk, do get it as raw as you can. And people all the time, they're like, yeah, but. I get yeah-butted on these things. And I have to tell folks, okay, 1,000 years ago, did they pasteurize milk? No, but they didn't live very long. That's not actually that true. Now, a lot of them, if they could just survive the first 2 years of life, awesome. You pretty much had a full life. Yes, there were some dangers and things like that. There were marauders and tribal wars and that such. But people that lived to old age were just fine. It's people didn't make it to old age because of the injuries and things. Well, now that we're a much safer society, that we tend to take care of ourselves, we wear seatbelts, blah, blah, blah. We don't, we're not out there getting hit by a bus every day. I mean, imagine if every day one of your friends you knew died in a car crash from walking across the street and they were hit and killed. You'd be like, wow, it's really dangerous out there. But that's not really how it is. But 1,000 years ago, you had warriors and you had tribal wars and all kinds of weird things, and people would die. So we kind of like to live and love a little bit more and not try to beat each other up all the time. And that's true from the vast majority of people. There's still some areas of our world that are probably not the kindest places to be, but I digress. So ultimately, a lot of us did live a nice old age, and we did because our diet was probably better. The biggest problem we had back then was whether or not we were going to eat. There was no fast food restaurants anywhere, and so you had to kill your food. You had to get it fresh. You had milk, and you could only drink it fresh. You couldn't store it in a refrigerator. So we ate a lot of things a lot more differently, but it was probably better in some respects than now when things are so overprocessed. So first of all, I would say about 500 to 700 milligrams of calcium lactate a day would probably be good for most. And you'll know because instantly your lips feel like, hey, this feels pretty good. Your skin will feel less dry. Your nails will not peel. So if you've got peeling nails, that's another call for calcium. Could be B vitamins, but calcium is probably the bigger deal. If your skin's pretty dry, again, I'm going to pick a little bit on liver. I'm going to pick a little bit on your calcium levels and maybe a few other minerals. But for the most part, you're going to see that, hey, my skin's a lot softer doing more calcium. You're right. If you have a dry cough that, I've got patients that come in and they just cough. And every time I see them, they cough. Not a lot, but they'll cough once or twice. I'm just thinking, do you notice that you cough? You have this dry cough, you just cough? No. It's been with them so long that it's just a part of who they are. But as you alert them to that, they'll say, you know what, doc, you're right. I cough like 2 or 3 times an hour. I just cough. Nothing comes up. It's dry. It's just like my throat's dry, like I can't get enough water. That's another need for calcium. Let's say that you have high fevers or had when you were little. You may have a raging calcium deficiency that's been with you for a long time. So calcium is something you're going to want to do on a more regular basis. Let's say that you're an athlete and you get tight muscles and stiff and sore. Again, calcium is going to be something you're going to want to run to. Let's say you have indigestion or acid reflux. Calcium is something you're going to want to run to. And bad calcium, like Tums. I love that they put a rock in Tums. We're going to put calcium carbonate in Tums for your antacid. Well, of course that's going to wreck digestion even more. Why not put it in Tums? That just makes sense so we can keep a recurrent customer because we're wrecking their digestion at the same time we're fixing their acid reflux. But they're not fixing acid reflux. They're just neutralizing all the acid that's left in their stomach, what little they have. It's wonderful. Check out my other podcasts on digestion. You'll understand more if that's kind of flew over your head. But so that's dry lips and calcium. So I hope that was of help. If it created more questions, definitely send me an email, text me. Happy to converse and talk about your issues if they're different than what we think. Until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson on Revealing Wholeness.
The information on Dr. Troy Munson's podcast is meant to educate the listener and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease.